the level of the Metzias of Chochma, which is a Chochma Techaya Ba'aleha, that through Chochma, which is in a way that it's completely in an appreciation that there's nothing besides Hashem, so that is the one that really causes the complete makif, the level that it's beyond any particular aver, and that is mevarer, and that's why we say that Chachma is the idea of Chachma is beriru, Chachma causes the birur. But on the other hand, the problem with the level of Chaya and the problem with the level of Chachma is the very fact that it needs to engage with the thing that it needs to be mevarer. It needs to let us know that there is ein oid malvadai, that there is hu lavadai, hu ve'ein zolosai. That itself means that there is a possibility for something else, and Chochma negates that. So now the Rebbe is going to explain that concept in a more technical way, and I'll first explain this, what he's trying to say outside, then we'll get to it inside. It says, HaChochma ma'ayin timotzei. Chochma comes from ayin. Because HaChochma ma'ayin timotzei, often we identify that Bina is yesh and Chochma is ayin. Yet, Chassidus often speaks about different levels of ayin that are responsible and deal with, let's say, the coming into being of the yesh, or causing the birur of the yesh, like we were talking about, the Chachma is beriru. The Maimer is going to say now that Chachma is such an ayin that engages with the yesh. So because it engages with the yesh, so as we said also yesterday, the very fact that it's trying to be mevarer the yesh, that cannot be the ultimate level of ayin. And he's going to move towards explaining the ultimate ayin, the true ayin, is the ayin of Yechida. Let's see it inside again, line 16 on page 11. Ayin, concerning the ayin, Sha'chochma ma'ayin timotzi, that Chochma is a level of ayin, and still in all we're saying that despite the fact that it's an ayin, it still needs to, it's still not the ultimate remove from the yesh. It still has something connected with the olamas. That's not the true ayin, the ultimate ayin. That completely has no connection with the yesh, completely precedes it. Rather, the ayin that we identify Chochma with, ki'im ha'ayin sheba levatel es hayesh, top of page, this next page, page design. It's an ayin that comes to nullify, to sublimate, to make the yesh not be a yesh. So the Rebbe explains that there's two levels in ayin. As it's known, the difference between the two matters and the two aspects of ayin. Sha'ayin sheba levatel es hayesh, the ayin that comes to nullify the yesh, harehu ba la'achrei hayesh. He comes following the yesh. This means that conceptually, if you have an ayin that its purpose is to somehow repair the yesh, so it was conceptually first the idea of this yesh, and then there was the ayin. Similar to what we always bring the Maimer Chazal, that even though Torah and Yidden both preceded the worlds, their thought preceded the worlds, but which of the two preceded which? The Torah preceded the Yidden, or did the Yidden precede the Torah? So when I see that it says in the Torah, Daber al Bnei Yisrael, Tzaves Bnei Yisrael, etc., speak to the Bnei Yisrael, say to the Bnei Yisrael, so obviously Torah is there to influence and to serve and to communicate to Bnei Yisrael. So conceptually, Yisrael were there first. And therefore, in Hashem's thought, the first thing was Yisrael. And then I need to communicate to Yisrael, so I have the Torah. The same thing over here. If Chochma's ayin is not a complete ayin. It has to do with nullifying something else. So that yesh has something that precedes and is higher than the ayin that is coming to be mevatlet. So he says in line 3 to explain this further, V'hainu shayesh kadam elav, the yesh is really something that precedes this ayin. V'ein zurak dima b'derech shel siba mesuvav. It's not just a precedence which is found in cause and effect. That in cause and effect, you have the cause precedes the effect. The action precedes the consequence of the action. But elagam kedima b'mayla, that the yesh must be higher qualitatively than the ayin. Shayesh u'b'shar shelamayla mishar sha'ayin shemavatlos hayesh. The yesh in its root is higher than the ayin that is mevatel the yesh. That's why it's so important to bring this ayin to be mevatel this yesh, because this yesh is so valuable. Just to perhaps give an example of the Hayoim Yoim that I think was the Rebbe Rashab, I think told the Frierdiker Rebbe, I don't remember now exactly. Look how precious a Jewish body is, that so much Torah and mitzvahs was poured out for it. In other words, the body of a Yid is so valuable that we gave the Torah and mitzvahs just to be able to deal with the body. The same thing, the yesh is so valuable, so great, that we will have an ayin to nullify it, to fix it up, to make the yesh not be a yesh in that type of way. To such a degree is the ayin taking second place to the yesh. The ayin that comes to be mevatel the yesh takes second place to the yesh. That even the ayin, the way it is on its own, yesh like eze shayches ala yesh, has some type of association with the yesh. Like we mentioned earlier, the very fact that the ayin's mission, this level of ayin, the ayin of the chachma, its purpose is to affect a bittul in the existence of the yesh. It's obvious that it has some type of connection with the yesh. What is where do we see this? As a proof of this, there's a need to do work, to do service, to do the service and work of refining the sparks. You need to refine the sparks through the capability of chachma. His bonus, or an avoid of meditating. That's all the idea of chachma. Either there's a level of chachma which is called a recognition of godliness, or you say them as a the chachma. There's the vision of chachma, which is even higher than recognition, where you perceive godliness in a way of vision. But all of this is to be able to facilitate refining and working on your midas. So that means that chachma, as aloof as it is, and as much higher than it is than bina, still relates to the yesh, still relates to the things that it has to be mevarer. So it's not the ultimate level that is transcendent. But what is the ultimate level that's transcendent? Not the level of chachma, not the level of chayam. There's a higher level. The yechida is completely removed from everything and anything. It has its mission, its purpose has nothing to do with the yesh. It does not relate to the limitations and concealments of this world. It is entirely about oneness with Hashem. Concerning the level of yechida, it says in the Hishanis, so we say in Sukkot, Chavuka or Dvuka Bach, it is embracing and cleaving in you. Yechida leyachtach. It is a yechida to be joined and one with you. V'hainu, this means it's completely about unity with Hashem. We're not even engaging with anything negative. V'hainu she'ein kan inyan shetzarech levatle. There is no matter that needs to be nullified. Elihim l'chatchila chavuka dvuka bach. But rather it is initially already embraced and cleaving in you. Its entire being is only to be united with you. Not like Chochmah, that the ayin is coming to be mioddle the yesh. The ayin is coming to bring forth the idea that hu levadi hu vein zelosei, there's nothing besides Hashem, though there might be a possibility of thinking otherwise. Therefore, habitl shel bechinas hayichida. Therefore, the bittul of the level of Yechida is a truer bittul even from the bittul of the level of Chachma. So now we're going to contrast the difference between the Chai Yechida and the Nefesh Ruach Neshama after going through all these different levels. And let's remember that what he said yesterday was that Nefesh Ruach Neshama is the soul powers that are enclosed and are internalized, they're koiches pnimim and have to do with particular limbs and organs. Chai Yechida, even the level of Yechaya, is all transcendent. And because of that, the main thing is the lower three, as we mentioned that Alter Rebbe and Tanya primarily speaks about those three. He doesn't explicitly refer to Chai Yechida. Line 21. Since these two levels, even the level of Chaya, which is lower, and how much more so the level of Yechida, is not in a way that they're enclosed in a particular limb. And we said that even Chachma is not about the level of Chachma that we're referring to over here, is not so much enclosed in the brain. It's the brain, physical brain, being the location for intellect, is primarily has to do with binam. From this understood concerning a person's service, the primary service is not in Chai Yechida. That's not what he has to work with on a regular basis. There are situations, in the case of emergency, break glass. In other words, if it comes to a situation of mesirus nefesh, self-sacrifice, over here, Yechida comes to the fore. Even Chochma has to do with that, as we see in Perek Yud and Perek Yud and Tanya. But primarily, our day-to-day avoida involves the koiches pnimim. Elo b'chinas nefesh ruach neshama, but rather our avoida on a regular basis is in the level of naran. Shehi avoida shal pitam v'das. It's the avoida that's based on reason and understanding. Shehi b'koiches shechol echad v'Yisrael. This is in the capability of every single yid. V'chol echad nitztavola. Every single yid was commanded to engage with their naran in their avoida. The top of page Yud Zayin, who in mesirus nefesh, though the foundation and the root of all avodah is self-sacrifice, meaning, why does a yid have this connection to Hashem? Why is he serving Hashem? Because deep down, deep down, every yid feels and has this essential will that's clear and simple will that he can't have any other way than being connected to Hashem. Like the teaching of Alter Rebbe. The Jew, neither does he want, and neither is he capable to be separated from godliness. But that is not a constant, full-blown avodah that a person engages in on a day-to-day basis. That awareness and that connection is only the foundation and the root of the person's avodah. The revealed avodah is the avodah that's based on reason and knowledge. That's the avodah dealing with the koiches pnimim of nefesh ruach neshama. So now we're going to get back to the original topic of the Maimer, that we wanted to understand the difference between Amalek, Reishis Goyim Amalek versus the 7 nations, and we had to also understand what is the opposite of Reishis. What is the opposite of Reishis Goyim in Kedusha? The Reishis in Kedusha is the level of Chai Yechida. The Nefesh Ruach Neshama corresponds to and is used to deal with the other Goyim, as we'll soon explain. Ois test, line 8. With this will be also understood the difference between the war against Amalek to the war with the 7 nations when the Yidden went into Eretz Yisrael. When Yidden had to go into a settled land, an inhabited land, Eretz Toiva Rechava, good and broad land, which means that everything is set and normal and miyushev. It's settled type of avoida. It's organized. It has a step-by-step process, just like when you're living in a civilized country, you plant and you sow and all these different things to be able to live in a normal civilized way. Over there, the avoid is in an organized fashion, in a way that's internalized, meaning everything is in its right place. And then the war was the 7 nations. They correspond to the 7 emotional character traits of a person. That the way how we refine the 7 character traits is through a war, but the war is in an inner fashion, in a way that we have to deal with it in the koiches pnimim. To be able to defeat the 7 nations, it's sufficient to have the avoida by tam vadas, by reason, by knowledge, by understanding, meditating, and from the meditation and contemplation bring about the appropriate middos to counter the middos of the 7 nations, and from that to come to do the right actions. So what's enough to be able to deal with the 7 nations is the avoid of nefesh, ruach, neshama, nara. As opposed to when the war was in the wilderness, the war against Amalek, all of Namaresh is going Amalek. Concerning him, it says that the first of all the nations is Amalek. That we explained that the word Reish has 2 connotations. One meaning is that it's first and beyond, above, but also it's connected to them. So first of all, he says it's in a way that he's first and aloof from them. He's beyond them. He's of a different type of category. But on the other hand, they only are associated with him. Why? Because after all is said and done, the 7 attributes, the 7 nations are descended from him, are related to him, come out from him. So how do you deal with the Reishis Goyim Amalek, where it's in the wilderness, and the wilderness is not a settled place? So our avoid is also in an unsettled manner, not in a way of oiris bekalim, in a masudic way, in a way of intellect and emotions and actions. In b'shvil zeh yesh tzoyrech v'madreges hakedusha sheboifen shel avdola, that we need to bring to the fore a level of kedusha that's also in a way of being aloof and removed. We cannot deal with the level of kedusha that's limited according to knowledge and reason, as we'll soon explain more practically why. Beyond knowledge and reason, that's the type of bittul to godliness of yechida. That's what we need to counter Amalek. It's embracing you and it's cleaving to you. It's completely united with you. Or at least the bittul of chachma, which is chaya, that we said that chachma recognizes that he is the only thing, Hashem is the only thing, and there's nothing besides him. There's no other existence except for the Eibishter. The kivon shebitl hametzias v'en ois metzias hu heipach tivoi, since nullifying the metzias, to cease being in existence, is completely the opposite of a person's nature. Not just Amalek's nature. Any person, any being wants to exist. So that is Hareza Avoida Shalom Matam Vadas. So that is all an avoida, even the avoida of the Chachma, of the Chaya, is the opposite of the nature of the person. Now the Rebbe is going to elaborate some more about this non-rational way how we need to fight Amalek. Top of page Ches. The idea behind this is the just like in Kedusha, there's the avoid beyond reason and knowledge. So to Hashem made this opposing that correspondingly in Klippa Shagam Hanagosi Shalamolik Hoisa Ba'ofen Sheilus and Mokmal Pitam Vadas. And also the way Amalek acted was in a way that there was no room for this in intellect. It made no logical sense for Amalek to attack the Eden. The Rebbe is going to explain, very basic that we know. The way the Eden went out of Mitzrayim was in such a way, like we say in Oz Yashir, that it fell upon them, on all the nations of the world, a fear and a trembling fear, and they were scared, they were terrified. The Afal became, despite the fear that all the nations experienced when they saw the unbelievable miracles and the makas that happened in Mitzrayim, not only was Amalek not affected by it, but just the opposite. Amalek came and fought with the Yidden. And the Rebbe emphasized, specifically, he came on his own. It's not like other cases where the Yidden encountered the territory of some other person, or he wanted to go through the territory, or it was standing in the way. Here it was Amalek completely initiated the attack. It wasn't in such a way that the Jewish people came to fight with him, and therefore Amalek didn't have a choice. So, he rather wouldn't have fought the Yidden who were on the top of the world then, but he had no choice. No, he came on his own. Like the very well-known expression, chutzpah b'loi taga. It's a chutzpah without a crown. Leloi tam. That means a chutzpah without any reason. There could be two types of chutzpah. Chutzpah that comes, let's say, you're a king, so you're wearing a crown, so that brings you to arrogance. You shouldn't have the arrogance, you shouldn't be chutzpah, even if you're a king, but at least you have a crown to justify it. There's a level of chutzpah that is without crown whatsoever, that there's no reason for it whatsoever, and the Rebbe is going to explain a well-known mashal for this. He says in line 12, it's known, the analogy for this, there's a chutzpah that's based on reason. Says a rich person, the pasuk says, will respond and proclaim, Mishlei says, in a very chutzpahdik way. Meaning, in his mind, he believes that there's a reason for him to be chutzpahdik, him to be arrogant. Since he thinks that my power and the strength of my hand made me and gave me all the success and wealth, therefore he prides himself in his riches, even though he shouldn't, like we'll soon explain. Not only does he pride himself, but he proclaims himself in a very chutzpahdik way. The same thing, in the same pasuk it says, Al Yishal Asher Ba'asher, it says, Al Yishal Chacham B'chachmasei, a Chacham should not pride himself with his wisdom. So you can have also that the Chacham should be chutzpahdik, based on the fact that he believes that he has what to lord it over other people. The truth is, it's a mistake by both of them. Even in truth, is that by both of the people that believe they have what to be proud about, both the rich person and the wise person, this is not a good explanation. It's not a true explanation. Let's explain that length in Kunsh Samayim. And when a person thinks into it, that you'll see that Hashem is the one that gives you the power to be successful, both in literal riches, in monetary, physical riches, also concerning spiritual riches, and we know spiritual riches refer to wisdom, as it says, Ein Ani El Badas, Ein Asher El Badas. Who's considered poor if he's lacking knowledge? Who's considered rich if he has knowledge? Including also a wise person with his wisdom. He should know and realize that this is all from Hashem, so therefore there's nothing but to be proud about. Mikol Mokim, despite the mistaken notion, there is some room rationally why he thinks that he has what to be chutzpahdik about. There's also the chutzpah of someone that knows that he's low. This was actually the case of Amalek. He was the son of a maidservant. Became still and all. Or it's not only was he not affected by the fear and the trembling fear that fell upon all the nations of the earth, just the opposite. Amalek came and he battled with the Yidden. This was something that is not rational and not reasonable. And therefore, the means to challenge Amalek, we're going to talk about tomorrow, is also in doing it with a non-rational and non-reasonable way, because his klippa is in a way that has no rational way of, has no rational support. So the way to attack it is also not with the nefesh, ruach, neshama, it's with the chai yechida, which is also super rational.